My name is Robin Held. I'm chief curator of the Frye Art Museum, and I'm really pleased today that we have with us author and cultural critic Greil Marcus on the occasion of the Old Weird America, an exhibition coordinated by the Contemporary Art Museum Houston in its final incarnation at the Frye through the end of the year. Jeremy Blake's Winchester. It seems to be almost the concentrated kind of cocktail of America goes crazy, American obsessions, America, even where the psychic is the architect.
Well, this, as I was saying before, there is a religious impulse in so much of the work here, and so often it's buried. It doesn't explain itself. It doesn't quite get out of the ground. And here is Mrs. Winchester, and she marries the inventor of the Winchester rifle, and she is afraid that the ghosts of all the Indians who were killed with Winchester rifles, and it was known as the Indian killer. Buffalo Bill Cody called it the Boss. It was this fearsome weapon that conquered the West. And she's trying to escape from the ghosts of dead Indians, and she thinks, well, I've got to get away. I can go. How far can I go? She goes all the way to San Jose. She goes, almost to the Pacific Ocean, and then she's told by a psychic that if she keeps building this house with infinite numbers of rooms, then the ghosts will not be able to find her. They'll get lost in the house. And so it's a house that she started building in, I can't remember the year, but she died, I think, in 1922. And the crews were there every single day for year after year after year, building more rooms. And some of the rooms had tilted floors. Some of them had windows that opened up into nothing, blank doors, everything to confuse the ghosts.
I never thought about this as a really complicated kind of safe house.
It absolutely is, and of course she lived in it, and it was a house for living. It has a wonderful kitchen, but it's also completely insane. And yet she was an ordinary person in her way who lived in San Jose. My grandfather was a furrier in San Jose, and he made her coats. And he would drive out to the Winchester house, and the crews would be there hammering and they're plastering and everything that they were doing, and he would park his car and bring the coats in. And, people would go out and get her groceries. She lived an ordinary life, and it was all about getting away from the ghosts. The idea that this is what D.H. Lawrence talked about. He talked about how there's no foot of American soil that you can walk on without there being ghosts beneath it, ghosts of murdered Indians. And he, you can almost see the hand reaching up, like at the end of Carrie. Yeah. And that's what she was fighting. That's what she was running from.
So did you enter the house as a child? You mentioned that the house is part of your folklore.
Oh, sure.
So did it feel heavy with that kind of atonement, that kind of...
No, for a kid, it's a haunted house. Mm-hmm. It's the best haunted house ever. It makes the haunted houses in theme parks and look like nothing. And there were all these wonderful touches, like they would use Winchester triggers on the windows as latches. Everything was nuts, and yet as you walk through it and you're told the story and you're a little kid, and you just think it's wonderful. You think there's so much imagination. You can do anything. Can you imagine? You can build a house and it never ends. That's a thrilling idea.
Were you allowed to wander?
Well, yeah. You go in and you start walking around. Yeah. You can still visit it today. I went there a few years ago.
That's what I was going to ask you about, because not many people, I've not heard a story from someone who was actually in the house during her lifetime. I know it as a museumized place. And so
Sure.
I'm wondering, can you say something about your experience of it now, where it embodies her past, her history, but we visit it now like a mausoleum or a...
You know, when you visit the house, at least for me, I don't think about her. I just think about this wonderful haunted house. You know, it's Charles Adams. It really is spooky, but it's also a playground. I mean, for a little kid, you can't believe it, you know, that you walk into a room, but it's not a room. And there are all kinds of false perspectives. What looks like a big room is actually a closet. It's just very confusing. And this video captures it wonderfully. There, you know, you see the soldiers, you see the rifles, you see the dead Indians, all in kaleidoscopic figures, and then the house emerges out of this wash of color, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, as if it's watching over, looking at the history that built the house. Mm-hmm. It's like the house.
That's like in Psycho.
The house itself has a memory. That's how it feels.
I love how it emerges in this too, in out of the goo of the paint, out of the drips, but it's out of the hallucination. It's almost emerging from the visions that created it.
And you know, she refused to be photographed. She was convinced that if anyone could take a picture of her, it would steal her soul. And there's only one known photograph of her that was taken when she was out for a drive, and somebody caught her. And she's riding in an open limousine, open carriage car, and she's looking at the photographer, you know, like, oh my God. And the San Francisco artist Jess did an encrusted painting of that photograph. And it's as if this is her body that is rotting in the coffin. That's how it feels. You know, it comes out an inch, almost 2 inches from the canvas, the paint on paint on paint. And it's rotting as you look. You know, it seems alive, it seems to be moving.
Greil Marcus, thank you very much for your time today. It was a pleasure.
Robin, thank you for inviting me.
Pleasure to share the exhibition with you.
It's wonderful to be here, to see this again. And I really appreciate it.
Thank you.